Happy Friday. Here's an AFN news update for you. I'm Bronson Woodruff. Hurricane Helene weakened to a tropical storm over Georgia with maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour early this morning, according to the National Hurricane Center. Helene continues to weaken while moving farther inland over Georgia. The storm was about 40 miles east of Macon and about 100 miles southeast of Atlanta, moving north at 30 miles an hour at 5 a.m. That's according to the center in Miami. The storm made landfall in northwestern Florida as a Category 4 storm. As forecasters warned, the enormous system could create a nightmare storm surge and bring dangerous winds and rain across much of the southeastern U.S. There were at least 3 storm-related deaths. The Hurricane Center said Helene roared ashore around 11:10 p.m. Thursday near the mouth of the Osceola River in the Big Bend area of Florida's Gulf Coast. It had maximum sustained winds estimated at 140 miles an hour. That location was only about 20 miles northwest of where Hurricane Idalia came ashore last year at nearly the same ferocity and caused extensive damage. If world leaders were looking for an apology from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for taking on Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists, they were sorely disappointed when he took to the podium at the United Nations today. Here's some of what he had to say.
I have a message for the tyrants of Tehran. If you strike us, we will strike you. Hezbollah is the quintessential terror organization in the world today. It has tentacles that span in all continents. If Hamas stays in power, it will regroup, rearm, and attack Israel again and again and again, as it is vowed to do. So Hamas has got to go.
Netanyahu also said, quote, Israel has every right to remove this threat and return our citizens to their homes safely, and that's exactly what we're doing. We'll continue degrading Hezbollah until all our objectives are met. Netanyahu spoke to a gallery that, at least from the crowd noise, appeared to have many supporters of his. He continued, just imagine if terrorists turned El Paso and San Diego into ghost towns. How long would the American government tolerate that? He said, shaking his fist in emphasis. Quote, yet Israel has been tolerating this intolerable solution for almost a year. Well, I've come here today to say enough is enough. Netanyahu defended his nation's response to the October 7, 2023 attacks by Gaza's Hamas terrorists on Israel that resulted in the massacre of more than 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children. He said he traveled to the UN to refute the untruths he'd heard from other leaders on the same rostrum earlier in the week. The Justice Department unsealed criminal charges today against 3 Iranian operatives suspected of hacking Donald Trump's presidential campaign and disseminating stolen information to media organizations. The 3 accused hackers were employed by Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, and their operation also targeted a broad swath of targets, including government officials, members of the media, and non-governmental organizations. That's according to the Justice Department. The Trump campaign disclosed back on August 10th that it had been hacked and said Iranian actors had stolen and distributed sensitive internal documents. Multiple major news organizations that said they were leaked confidential info from inside the Trump campaign, including Politico, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, all declined to publish the info. U.S. intelligence officials subsequently linked Iran to a hack of the Trump campaign and to an attempted breach of the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris campaign as well. They said the hack and dump operation was meant to sow discord, exploit divisions within American society, and potentially influence the outcome of elections that Iran perceives to be, quote, particularly consequential in terms of the impact they could have on its national security interests. VP Kamala Harris today is scheduled to make her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border in years, in hopes of confronting head-on one of her biggest vulnerabilities ahead of the November election. She's scheduled to appear in Douglas, Arizona, as former President Donald Trump and his fellow Republicans pound Harris relentlessly over the Biden administration's record on border security, which has seen millions of people from more than 150 countries invade our country. Immigration and border security are top issues in the state of Arizona, the only battleground state that borders Mexico and one that contended with a record number of illegals last year. Trump has an edge with voters on immigration, and Harris has gone on offense to improve her standing on the issue and defuse a key line of political attack for Trump. In nearly every campaign speech she gives, Harris recounts how a sweeping bipartisan package aiming to overhaul the federal immigration system collapsed in Congress earlier this year after Trump urged top Republicans to oppose it. Polls show that most Americans trust Trump to handle border security more than they do Harris. A settlement was reached Thursday in a defamation lawsuit brought by electronic voting machine manufacturer Smartmatic against conservative news outlet Newsmax for airing accusations about vote manipulation in the 2020 election. The settlement was announced just a few hours after jury selection began in the lawsuit filed by Florida-based Smartmatic against Newsmax. Smartmatic claimed that Newsmax program hosts and guests made false and defamatory statements in November and December of 2020, implying that Smartmatic participated in rigging the results and that its software was used to switch votes. Newsmax argued that it was simply reporting on newsworthy allegations being made by Trump and his supporters, including former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani and conservative attorney Sidney Powell. Newsmax has said the lawsuit represented a threat to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And that'll do it for this American Family News Update. Thanks for watching. You can also be sure and tune in. You can also be sure and check out AFN.net for much more news from a Christian perspective. Have a great weekend. I'm Bronson Woodruff.